Welcome back, everybody out there in the Boss Hole Transformation Nation. This is your co-host, John Brewer, welcoming you to another episode of the Boss Hole Chronicles. And actually, this is part one of a two-part episode based on a conversation that Sarah and I had with a good friend of ours by the name of Jonathan Reynolds. I met Jonathan back in, I think it was 2017, when he and his colleague Mike and I were all going through the process of becoming certified partners for the Predictive Index. And the really cool thing is John's energy, his vision, his excitement came through from day one. And we've been wanting to get him on the program for a while because how he has grown and evolved as a leader, I think, is great content for all of our business leaders, our managers, our supervisors out there who, like a lot of people, you're afraid to make mistakes, but you're going to make mistakes and you have to grow from them. And Jonathan just gives us some amazing perspective on how he has grown from them. He is an author. He has a best-selling book called Right Seats, Right People, A Leader's Guide to Hiring and Developing Top Talent, and currently leads a unique team of talent consultants that have been on Inc. 5000's list of fastest growing companies for 5 years in a row. So go to the show notes. You'll learn more information about Jonathan, about Titus Talent Strategies. You'll even get a link to his book. But I want you to pay close attention to his experiences as a leader, good and bad, but how he has maintained that energy, that vision, and continues to bring excitement to the work that he does, no matter what the market conditions may be. So, let's hear from Jonathan. The Boss Hole Chronicles are brought to you by Real Good Ventures, a talent optimization firm helping organizations diagnose their most critical people and execution issues with world-class analytics. Make sure to check out all the resources in the show notes and be sure to follow us and share your feedback. Enjoy today's episode. Well, Jonathan Reynolds, it is a pleasure to have you on the Boss Hole Chronicles. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. It's good to be with some old friends. Not that you're old, but the friendship is old.
Yes, and our listeners know that we met you and your team, years ago at one of the Optima conferences, and you've just done remarkable stuff, and we've been looking forward to having you on the Boss Hole Chronicles for quite some time. What I've always loved, Jonathan, about just our conversations is your perspective on things. You have such a unique perspective, and at the same time, you're running a business. And I know one of the first things we're going to talk about is what to do when things start to slow down a little bit. What do leaders need to do? And we'd love to hear your thoughts on that scenario.
Well, thanks a lot for having me. It's good to be here. Yeah, it's just this topic where you kind of got me going a little bit earlier just before we started the show, and I was like, yeah, this is interesting because we are outside. We're seen as, if you go and look at Titus Talent Strategies, you go on our website, you go on any social media, you're like, wow, you said it, you guys are booming, so many exciting things going on. We're 5 years in a row on the Inc. 5000, which I feel really proud of. Yes, it's yes. All of those things, and we could list off all of these like exciting things that we're doing and making a splash all over the place. But if you really look behind the curtain and you talk to any of our senior leaders, like, how's 2023 going? They'd be like, it sucks. It just sucks. We're working so hard. And if we worked this hard last year or the year before, we would be as explosive as we were last year or the year before.
Right.
This year has been oddly flat. And we're still seeing loads of same amount of new customers and new clients coming and joining us. It's actually some of our bigger, more stable clients that we worked with for years. They slowed down on their hiring on the first half of the year. And so it caused us to kind of really scratch our heads going, what the heck is happening? We're working our tails off with less return on the investment. And it's it's like when you crank the heat up and get people hungry, and everyone just starts getting a bit agitated. They don't know why. It's like, what's going on? It's kind of a bit sort of subconsciously irritated, and we're trying to figure out who's to blame. And I think there's a tendency can be for leaders is to suddenly, when things are not going well, to kind of we don't usually look at ourselves first and say, what do I need to do to better myself? What do I need to going on right now in me? And the self-awareness isn't quite there. So we kind of look to try and figure out what the problem is. And in those moments, I think we probably miss it more often than we get it right, because we're not actually aware of what the real issue is. Oh, it's really hot, the AC's off, and I'm hangry. That's what the issue is,
Right.
If you got kids and you start recognizing those patterns in your kids before they recognize them, you're like, it's actually nothing to do with the shoes. It's actually to do with you haven't eaten. That's what it is,
Right.
But we misread situations. And I'm just trying to work on myself this year in that area, because I'm like, I don't want to go around with these kind of fingers pointing, going, why is this like this? Whose fault is it?
Right.
Because it's a horrible culture to have. People feel like when things go bad, some heads will roll. We don't want that. We want a beautiful culture where people want to work and where they're engaged. And so I'm trying to navigate some of those things better than maybe the beginning of the pandemic, where, one of my bigger failings, I'm like, I remember that situation, how I handled it, and it wasn't good, So just trying to learn from some of those things. But yeah.
My question is, Jonathan, from your seat as the leader of your company, or one of the chief executives, could you share, because I think this is really valuable, and it's a reflective exercise that might help other leaders who kind of wake up and go, yeah, that's exactly what I'm feeling. I'm hangry, but it's not anyone's fault. What have you noticed or taken responsibility for yourself? Is there an example of, hey, I realize this is something I'm going to take responsibility for and do a little bit differently, or we are going to take responsibility for?
That's a great question. And I'm just massively aware that, right now in the midst of this, I probably am still doing things not well, or not great.
Sure.
Just trying to figure out what those things are at all times. I will, not often, but maybe once a year, ask the executive team around me, either in a one-on-one or as a group. I'll say, all right, fill in the blanks for me, just so I understand. I say something like, ugh, that's so Jonathan, with an eye roll. Like, what is it? What are those situations when people roll their eyes and go, that's so Jonathan?
Yeah.
And fill in the blank for whoever's listening, because we all have those idiosyncrasies that people kind of bear with and put up with, because there's lots of good things. And I like to think there's lots of good things that I have going for me, good characteristics. But there are things that just really tick people off. And to have the self-awareness to go, what are those things that are in my blind spots? Because they're blind spots for a reason, because you can't see them.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Right.
And we need people to actually say, here's your blind spot, and what are you going to do about it? And it's just funny when people say, here, you do this, and then we're like, because it's a blind spot issue, we go, no, I don't. I can't see that. I'm like, that's
right.
the whole point,
Exactly.
So,
and why did you ask me? Yeah,
exactly. It's like this is the closest relationship in your life are probably like this,
Yeah. Right.
I
Back
know
and forth.
Those are the things. I am more defensive anywhere else, than anywhere else is in my family. That's where I'm accused of being defensive.
I totally get that.
Anyone
but
else?
It's great that you ask your direct reports, your team. It's great that you ask them. Do you feel like you get good feedback in return?
Yeah, I actually did it with a kind of a skip level. I'll try and do skip levels as well with the direct reports, my direct reports. And I only have a few direct reports, so I'm actually not very good at it. I sort of self-proclaim not a good manager of people because of consistency. I'm just not really good with consistency, and not really good at following the process. And a lot of people want a manager and someone who's going to lead them, who's consistent and follow the process,
right?
Not so erratic. So I am kind of shielded in some ways. I only have a few, very, very few direct reports. But so I've enjoyed, where I kind of enjoy more, is doing the skip level and connecting with some of those other individuals. And I'll ask them the same thing. I talked with our accounting manager. She's been on our team for over a decade. And I'm like, wow, we've grown so much, haven't we? Well, let's get some time together just to reconnect relationally, hear about your family, hear about those things. And also, I got a couple of questions. Are there things that we are doing as a senior leadership team, executive team, that just tick you off, that make your job difficult? because we can sometimes be like, don't worry about it. Accounting will figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like we're going to treat it like it's a bot, but it's not. It's a real person who shows up to work and wants to enjoy what they do. And if we keep, especially an accountant, like our accounting managers, a Guardian profile in the predictive index. I'm like, amazing for us. Protects us like crazy.
Right.
We can also really mess with the pleasantness of her job by changing things or not following a process or saying she'll figure it out. And so I was able to ask her this past week, I'm like, what is there anything that I'm doing or you hear that came from me, things that we're doing that could be really frustrating to you? And for her, she was like, I just want to know a bit more of the story on this. If you tell me the story and why, I'm going to be way easier to get on board with it. But if I'm just told information, I don't function very well. I'm like, that is the same for everyone, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a good moment for me just to ask the question and figure out some of those things.
And we will be right back.
With employee disengagement at its highest level in 9 years, your company can't afford to miss the mark when it comes to optimizing your hiring, management, and team performance practices. At its lowest level, employee turnover costs you $11,000 per person. And those are dollars you can easily save with the right set of people analytics. Real Good Ventures is a talent optimization consultancy specializing in world-class analytics specific to your people and the critical role they play within your organization. Gain confidence in your hiring practices, keep the boss holes from driving your talent away, design your teams for flawless execution, and create a culture that offers meaning and fulfillment. Real Good Ventures has a family of validated diagnostic tools specific to the human aspect of business, because we know that all business issues are people issues. Visit us today at www.realgoodventures.com and bring meaning and fulfillment back into your workplace.
Okay, let's get back to the program. Jonathan, as our listeners have picked up, you are a fellow certified partner of the Predictive Index, so you use PI. It's not just something that you're asking your clients to apply. You use it internally, and one of the things I remember when we first met, I mean, you've got a big vision, a drive. You're a maverick, is that correct?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, and so that does not come as a surprise. But what I really appreciate, and I hope our listeners are hopefully, managers that are maybe struggling to get out of the boss hole zone, is that you tap the brakes, which is not easy for a maverick or an exploring pattern to do, and turned around and said, I really need to hear this. And I need to take this moment to get this feedback and to with great transparency, absorb it and receive it, because that's the only way. Even again, it doesn't take a downturn or a flat economy to do this. That's what an introspective and self-aware leader needs to do. But your natural tendency is to be out front, and you're really slowing that down, not slowing it down in a bad way, but just pausing to say, I got to check in with my folks.
Well, some of it is like the slowing down has been imposed upon me by the economy.
Okay.
And now I'm like, but in it, I'm looking and doing a bit of a self-evaluation. Where should my time? What's the greatest and best use of my time? Where should it be spent?
Right.
So two things. One is, if I kind of rewind back, go back to Sarah's question from earlier, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I got a great business executive team, business partners who are in the business, which are great senior leadership team, more like a management team of managing all of the day-to-day operations of the company. And we're 170 something salaried team members, 100% remote. So we're in 35 different states. Our team members are all spread over the country. So, and I don't say that's a challenge. I think it's really not hard to manage that at all. We've always been 100% mobile, as we call it, and rich culture, all this kind of stuff. But when the beginning of the pandemic, one of the things we looked at was like, okay, we don't want to lose anyone if we don't have to, for obvious reasons. We want to see if we can get everyone a bonus by the end of the year. That was an unusual thing to say, but we wanted to do that. And then we thought, is there anyone who's in a life stage that would really like to not work for this summer, that would volunteer for that? Like, I'm, our income, I'm, whatever, I'm not the primary breadwinner, whatever. Like, I'll just take the summer off, or yeah, let's do something like that. And so I heard just one person had raised their hand, and I'm like, great. And I announced it to the whole company because I want to inspire everybody. So it's in front of the whole company. And so has volunteered to take the summer off. That wasn't true. I didn't check it. I never even asked this person.
No.
I just heard that it was. I was so fast, the maverick in me, like, okay, great, cool. This will save some jobs here. Great, let's move here. And really, really fast processing and fast reaction. You shouldn't make fast decisions in the middle of a crisis like that.
Right.
When there have people's hearts are involved.
Right.
So I had a huge. It was really tough. For me, when I say we care about our people more than anything else, more than our customers, and more than making a profit. Now, those are all connected. You can't have any of those three without the other.
Correct.
They know that we make people first decisions. What's best for the company as a whole. Then to this person to hear in front of the whole company that I was announcing that they were such a noble person because they volunteered to not work for the summer. And they're like,
they quote unquote volunteered.
I mentioned it to my boss as a possibility, but that was a big decision. I would need to talk to my spouse about it, my family about it. And I announced it to the whole company before that even happened.
Oops.
And so it was like, it caused quite a lot of pain and hurt from a leader they trusted. And they left us, and it wasn't good. It was like my big sort of like casualty from COVID for us. And thankfully, our casualties was no fatalities for anyone in our company directly.
Right.
And now this person did come back, and they just joined us like last month. So they were gone for a few years, and then they came back. But I was like, that was one of the things I was like, before they come back, are we really at peace with one another?
Yeah.
Because I've apologize, I've asked forgiveness, and I want to make sure that there's not any kind of bitterness. And thank those all kind of resolved. But I think the other thing is, in the middle of crisis or middle of uncomfortableness, is that we don't make quick people decisions almost to appease, like, whatever it is, the financials, or appease other people or whatever.
Right.
Like, there can be lots of pressures that you're facing if you've got investors and things to suddenly go, look, I'm reacting. Like, and I get that. It's kind of, sometimes you want some people just to look busy rather than sitting around if they don't know what they're doing. Can you just do something? Well, that's me. And I can do it myself as well, but it's not always the best thing to do when people's lives are at stake.
No, that's so true. But, I think everyone can appreciate your candor and vulnerability, the ownership you took over, how quickly you moved. And certainly you didn't intend to cause pain or harm. But I feel so often that leaders are quick to say, well, somebody should have told me, and they deflect right away to their team. So I think that's really rich. And nothing is a greater testament to an organization than when an employee comes back.
For sure.
That says something.
Yeah, it definitely, I love the kind of, someone said U-turns are welcome.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm like, not always, but for most people.
But that does speak to the people first philosophy or culture that you have there, that it's genuine. And you know what? Sometimes those wounds need to just heal. And I'm thrilled to hear that person came back. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, it's very thankful for it, because I think that sort of the second chance, as leaders, we must learn.
Mm-hmm.
We must learn from the mistakes that we make. And sometimes you can feel so down because you've screwed up something. And I've had some big failings in my career and my work life, and I can feel like, suck, I'm so rubbish at this, I should never do this. And it's like, actually, you don't actually get to say, I suck and I never get to, I shouldn't do this anymore, I should quit. You don't. You're a leader. So, sit up straight and ask for forgiveness, admit that you made the mistake, and learn from it, and don't do it again. And then I'm trying to figure that out right now, because I'm like, oh man, I've really had to call out to some of our team and senior leaders and sort of request and plead for mercy in certain areas. And I'm so thankful for gracious leaders around going, you screwed up. Like, but we're together with you in this, and we're gonna come through it together. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh man, that's such a beautiful thing for leaders to have people around that they can actually be real with, authentic with, saying I'm having a hard time, saying I screwed up. Weakness it shouldn't be vulnerability shouldn't be seen as weakness. I think we need to be committed to authenticity and vulnerability with our teams, because everybody feels it, and it's freeing to them when they hear their leaders say, I'm really struggling right now.
Yeah, I was wrong. I messed up. Yeah, I think this falls in that category that, Dr. Amy Edmondson would say is intelligent failure. Let's destigmatize failure. Let's give everybody that grace to realize that I'm human. I'm going to make a mistake. And if it's not intelligent, if I don't learn from it, and and every leader is really required to do that, or they should endeavor to do that.
Well, and there's one more nugget in here that I think is really important. Everyone's going to make mistakes. Like it just kind of dawned on me like a light bulb moment. Yeah. If somehow we are unclear about some, lofty expectation in our mind that we're going to mess up, then we're going to be in for a steep fall because we're human. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast over the weekend. It was Mel Robbins, and she was interviewing her daughter. It's her most recent episode, by the way, if anybody wants to go check it out. But she was talking about imposter syndrome. And her daughter is an emerging artist. She doesn't have any music out. She's not on social media. She just graduated from school, but she found herself in a tent at this art music festival with everybody she's grown up listening to. And she had a moment of hysteria and panic and, crumbled within herself. I suck. I shouldn't be here. I don't deserve to be here. I have nothing. I'm not even existing in this world yet. And then she realized, right, I'm not there yet. And that's the truth. Like, I'm new. I'm a beginner. I don't know that. And what happened for her as a result of that sounds like how you operate and how you think, Jonathan. Like, she kind of flipped to, wow, I feel humble. I feel grateful even to have people who are interested in learning about me or would even invite me into the conversation. Like, what can I learn from you? So she did a great job, I think, of just all of a sudden recognizing her humanity and not expecting somewhere in our heads, we were told or we bought into this idea that we have to be perfect or we have to be this to be a leader. We have to be these things. And guess what? We're not. Yeah. I don't know that we ever will be, but in the spirit of recognizing that, look what becomes available to you. You're a good example of that.
Yeah. So true. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody can probably relate to that in some way, that kind of imposter or that sort of that flexing, posing as well. Right. There's the imposter where you feel like if anyone's done something like, writing a book or whatever, it's like, who the heck is going to read this? Like, nobody cares. Nobody care about it,
Well, who do I think I am?
An idiot do it. And then there's the other side, which is the poser who shows up where you flex way over flexing to try and put yourself in the room. But deep down, you're like, such an idiot. Like, both are gross. It's like,
that's right.
Know who you are and be who you're supposed to be. Like, I realized recently I'm sitting in these monthly meetings with some of our senior leaders for an hour every month, and I'm adding it all up. I'm like, I hate being in the meeting. I hate it. But the only reason I'm like, you could just send me the report. But I'm like, I know that there's a whole bunch of other people that I would probably defer to because they know what they're talking about more. But I'm here because, and I was like, why am I in this meeting? I'm in the meeting to show them that I know and I care what they're doing and I want to appreciate them.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I could actually replace this meeting and have one-on-one time with them and give a lot more of my full present self. And I could actually show them my appreciation and care way more by doing that one-on-one. So I shifted and just said, I'm no longer coming to these meetings. Here's why. And in replacement of this, I'm doing this. But it's me playing to actually my strength better and getting the same or a better outcome. But I think that's that sort of the identity piece. I'm like, I don't want to just show up to this meeting every month. And there was 8 of them, separate meetings. I'm like, oh my gosh, all the different teams around the country. I'm like, it's not actually serving the company well, but I'm only doing it because I don't want to look like I don't care. So I don't just like quit. If I just quit, they'd be like, he doesn't care. No, I do care, but it's not a good use of my time to sit here with 5 other people and listen to you talk and pretend I'm listening.
Right. Well, I mean, great admission.
Well, no, and I just that made me think of, Sarah, the interview we just did with Kurt Green. He's a Vistage chair out of Kentucky, and he said, really what people want is your time and your attention. You don't have to have the answers. They just want to know that you care and you're there. And I think that's really powerful. And it is an investment of time. And while you can think of a million other things to potentially do, the investment of that time and attention is really critical. We sure hope you enjoyed part one of our two-part episode with Jonathan Reynolds from Titus Talent Strategies. Be sure to listen in next week when we will be able to share even more about what the organization is doing and their unique ways of giving back. Check out all the show notes, and we will see you next time on the Boss Hole Chronicles.